I'm smiling.
All right, we're on.
All
we're
right,
live.
we got
We finally figured it out
today. Yes, it has been so much fun getting this interview ready. So I am so excited you guys are here with me today. I'm Parker J. Cole. I am one of the authors for the Silverpines Western Historical Romance series that is coming up very, very soon. In fact, it is coming up with the first book called Mail Order Marshall by George McVey. It is a Bride of Beckham crossover that's going to jump start the series Silverpine. So I'm really excited to be talking to George about this one today. And so toward the end of our interview, you'll have an opportunity to join George in our Silverpines group. You can follow him on social media and all that good stuff. But one of the things is we're just so excited to be talking about this series. I can't tell you, I was really excited when George approached all the authors about it. So now I get a chance to talk to George about his feeling about Silverpine. So I hope you guys will stay with me right there. So what we're going to do is introduce my wonderful guest co-host, George McVey. George, how are you doing today?
Hey, Parker, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing fine. And again, thank you for taking time out of your quote unquote very busy schedule, because I know your schedule is quite busy, George. So I'm real glad to have you here. And Silverpines, we got a lot of interest in the series. A lot of people are just really looking forward to this series. And so we want to go ahead and give them just a little bit of background about the series and your thought process and stuff like that. So my first question is this: how did the idea for Silverpines come to be?
Well, the truth is, I was working on yet another of my mail order bride books, in the Sanctuary series, and to be honest, I as I was working on it, I suddenly just felt like there's so many of these that sometimes I personally felt like maybe another mail order bride series would just get lost in the background noise of all the mail order bride series. And so I started looking for something unique to do. And in doing that, I came across a little Netflix TV show called Lawless.
Yeah.
Which is about a town where, because of a disaster, there are no men left in the town, and it's a town populated by women. And so that, paired with the what to do with a new mail order bride kind of idea, came up with, what if there was a town where through disasters had a shortage of marriageable men, and they decided, well, if men can send for mail order brides, why can't we send for mail order husbands? Right. And so the idea was born, I guess you could say, through that little combination.
You know, what's fascinating about mail order bride books is that they're so popular. They're very, very popular. And I think it's because we have this romanticized idea that back in the day, I just wrote what I wanted down and put an ad in a newspaper and I got my husband or I got my wife, you know. But we know the reality of that is much, much different. But we still like the nostalgia of the idea of a mail order bride or a mail order groom. We like the nostalgia of it. And so I have to ask you, because you are a male that is in a predominantly female populated genre, which is romance. You all kinds of romance, from erotica to sweet, all kind of romance, you know. So how does it feel being a male in this female dominated genre?
Oh, that's a loaded question. To me, it really doesn't feel, I don't know how to say it. It doesn't feel different. It's just what I fell into. I mean, it was hard for me to accept that I was a romance writer.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it that way when I started out. When I started out writing, I just saw what I wrote as historicals. I didn't really see them as historical romance. I just saw them as Westerns, to be honest. And people just kept telling me, readers kept telling me, these are great romances. And I honestly would kind of scream in my head, no, they're not romances. People die.
Well, that's part of the romance of it. You know, it's not the gothic romance. romance, you know?
You know, the truth was, I've always been a romantic at heart. I mean, anybody who's read stories about how my wife and I met, or how our relationship has gone over the last 30 years knows that I am a romantic at heart. And so finally, just a couple of years ago, I finally quit fighting it and just admitted romance was in my heart and I was good at writing it. And so I just gave in and admitted that I wrote it, and then just started branching out and just writing, you know, anything that popped in my head that I wanted to write. And
as they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
well, you know, I mean, it is a typically female writer driven genre. And I have had some struggle with that, in the fact that it is harder for me to it was harder for me to win fans originally, to win readers originally, because, you know, they wanted, there's just a stigma that men who write romance write porn. They write erotica. That's all they know how to write. And it's not even good. And the feelings are all wrong. And, you know, so I literally, like a year and a half ago, had a very popular female romance writer tell me to give it up, to not even try it, that I would never make it. And then all that did was motivate me to try harder, because I didn't feel like I had the problem that she said all male romance writers had. And the thing is, there's more of them than people know. Most of them just aren't brave enough to use their own names. They create a female pen name and write that way. And I was like, you know, if I'm going to write, I'm going to write. I'm me, and I'm going to write as me. So take it or leave it. And somehow I lost Parker. So we're just going to keep talking a little bit about Silverpines while we wait to see if she'll make it back in here. Let me see if I can find what the next question was she had for me, and I can go that way. She gave them to me earlier, but I don't have them all. So okay, the next question she had for me was, do men love romance just as much as women do? Dirty little secret. Hey, you're back.
Yes, I am back. I am back. My apologies. My computer just died.
Oh, that's all right. It happens.
Yeah. But no, I miss like a nice chunk of that. So I'm just going, I know you just said men like romance just as much as women do.
Well, no, that's the question. That was the next question you had for me, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, you sent me a list of them, so I was just going to keep going.
Yeah.
The truth, you know what? Let me just answer that, because it's really simple. The answer is really simple. Yes and no.
Okay.
There are some men who love a good romance novel just as much as a woman does. And then there are some men who will never admit to loving a romance novel as much as a woman does. And then there are some men who don't have a romantic bone in their body, so they don't enjoy a good romance movie, they don't enjoy a good romance story, they don't enjoy a good romance novel. You know, but it's the same with women. I mean, there are fewer of them, but I do know women who don't enjoy romance novels. You know, of any variety, whether it's sweet, whether it's spicy, whether it's in between, you know. So I don't think, especially in today's world, I don't think we can split like that and say, is it a woman dominated readership? Is it a male dominated readership? The truth is, I know a lot of men who will never admit to it, but they read what's on their wife's Kindle.
Just admit it. You'll feel better if you do,
And
right?
the reason I know is because, you know, I get messages and emails and from them, as well as I do female readers, asking when the next book's coming out. And of course, it's always my wife wants to know when the next book's coming out, but
no, you want to know. You're just covering for. She just covering for you.
That's right. You know, and I have wives who also will contact me and say, my husband and I love your books. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I know they're out there. Mm-hmm. It's just not for my generation and older. It's just not cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For a man to say, oh yeah, I love a good romance novel. Yeah. Or yeah, I love a good, you know, rom-com, or I love a good, you know, but then there's some of us who are masculine enough to admit we are romantic and we like to read romance. So, yeah. You know,
I agree. I agree with that, George, because I think men need just as much as romance as women do. I don't think you could just say, hey, baby, you know, you can't do that. I think they want to be wined and dined. I think they do.
I think that the truth of the matter is some men need romance novels more than women because we need to know how to be romantic. How are you going to learn to do that? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's not cool to go up to your wife and say, okay, tell me how to wine and dine you.
Right.
You know, because we're supposed to just know. And the truth is,
we don't.
It's not something you're taught. And the best way, at least for me, one of the best ways growing up to learn how to be that kind of a guy, the guy that, you know, girls wanted to date was to read what they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember some years ago now, this is before Kindle came out, just to kind of age myself here. So years ago, this one guy said, do you really want to know about where to get inspiration for your girlfriend's or your wife's romance? The first thing he said was read your wife's romance novels. And then he said, you may be surprised at the one romance novel that they really enjoy. You may look at that, and the one that's read over is not quote unquote a sensual scene. It's a scene of incredible romance. You know, it's not always like some physicality. It's just the sweetness of it. You know, it's like, oh, he said, I love you with all my heart. I love you so much that I don't know, something. I can't think of anything right now, but just something.
Well, I will tell you, I read a novel not too long ago where the girl says to her guy that the most romantic thing she ever saw was the end of 16 Candles, the movie 16 Candles, which is one of those stupid, cheesy 80 rom-com movies. And it ends with the guy and the girl sitting on his dining room table with a cake in between them because everyone forgot her 16th birthday. And he gets her a cake and has all the candles burning and tells her, make a wish. And she says to him, it's already come true. And they kiss and the movie ends. Right. And the truth is, you know, it's an innocent little scene. There's no
like physicality,
right, you know, like to it at all. It's all about the fact that he remembered something everyone else forgot.
Yeah.
You know, that he did something special. Yeah. And that's really, you know, what we as men can learn from romance novels and movies, and is not just, you know, I mean, you're going to learn the moves you're going to learn. And those are not learned well by reading. To be real honest with you. It's real talk tonight, folks. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep it PG, okay?
That's why I said it's not learned by, I mean.
I hear you. You can't learn it with the books. You can't learn everything with the
books. But the truth is, you can learn how to romance someone through a book, through a question. I mean, you know, I have ladies who write me and ask me, how do you do romance so well? How do you write it so well? And the thing is, first off, I just do. But if I have a question, I will go to the women in my life and say, hey, is this romantic? I mean, anyone who's part of my Facebook readers group knows that I often ask my readers for help in writing a romance novel, you know, good stuff, bad stuff, what works, what doesn't work, you know, because, you know, if you want to know how to ride a horse, you go to a cowboy.
Exactly.
If you want to know how to do romance, you go to the person that you're trying to romance, or someone like the person you're trying to romance.
Right. And you know, it's funny because I just think of that time when you reached out to your readers and you asked, you know, in the Java Muse, you asked some of the worst pickup lines that women have ever gotten. And the one that makes me laugh the most, I'll be randomly somewhere, George, you know, picking up plates. And all of a sudden, I'll hear the character in the book go, "Did it hurt?" And it never fails to make me laugh because you could not have gotten that humor if someone else hadn't given you that. And that adds a lot of depthness to the story because as an author, you're reaching out to your reader, say, hey, what do you like to hear? Or what do you remember? And that really helps to connect.
You know, I still, to this day, I still have readers who contact me private message and send me cheesy pickup lines that they're getting on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And I'll just let you know, I make a list of all of those because the cheesy pickup guy, he'll be making a return in a series of novels I have coming out later this year. But anyway, he won't be in Silverpines. I guarantee that. But
and I'm sorry for our listeners. You know, I'm also a fan of PG, so I can go have these real quick rabbit trails to his other books. And I suggest that once you finish reading Silverpines and you start reading Mail Order Marshall coming up very soon, once you read that, you'll understand why everyone loves George's books. And so I want to get into Silverpines now because people want to know about Silverpines. So go ahead. How would you describe the Silverpine novels?
Oh, goodness. Oh, how do we describe this? They're mail order grooms. Literally, it's a town called Silverpines, which is both a mining and lumber community that experiences a series of disasters, one right after the other, that pretty much wipes out every marriageable man in the town. And leaves behind a bunch of widows and orphans and because it's set in the late 1800s, the natural thing that we know through history and other things is that in those types of situations, unscrupulous people would try to take advantage. And so my book, the first book, kind of sets it all up. Mail Order Marshall kind of sets it all up and happens before the disasters, in that my heroine, Betsy Pike, is set to marry the town's marshal. And on the eve of their wedding, the night before their wedding, he's killed. And the man who kills him assumes his job as town marshal and wants everything that the dead man had, including his fiance. And gives her 2 months to grieve, and then she's going to have to move into his home. And so she goes to the city council, who will not stand up against this man because they're afraid they'll be the next people he kills. And she makes a deal with them to contact her friend in Beckham, Maine, Elizabeth Tandy, and send for a husband who has experience as a lawman. And that's kind of how it kicks off. And then after my book, or in my book, I should say, the natural disasters that happen and the disasters caused by those that happen that wipe out most of the men lead women into town to come to Betsy and ask her how she got her husband. And so that leads to the rest of our stories, which literally is stories of women in the town who need a man in their life and who, at Betsy's suggestion, take out ads in the Groom Gazette that Elizabeth Tandy and company run, sending for mail order grooms. And while we're at it, I have to thank Kirsten Osborne for allowing me to play in the Bride of Beckham world. She's very
That's a big
particular. She's very particular about who she lets play in that world, and I don't blame her. You know, it's her characters, and nobody wants to let just anybody mess with their characters. But she was very gracious in allowing me, when I presented the story to her, telling me she thought it would fit the Bride of Beckham stuff. So I'm very grateful to her. I think Silverpines would have been very different without that tie-in, that Bride of Beckham tie-in. So that's really what Silverpines is about. It's really about watching this town recover from these disasters and watching these women who either were daughters or widows of people who died in the disaster find their happy ever afterwards.
Yeah.
So
and I like Silverpines a lot. This as a fellow author with you, I like Silverpines a lot because these women have to figure things out. They have to band together, because here is a natural disaster. Our homes are destroyed. Some of our homes are destroyed. Our businesses are destroyed. A way of life that we once had is gone now. You know, the husband that took care of me, the brother that took care of me, the mom, the dad, whoever, they're gone now. And so now women, it's kind of like women power, but we're not throwing the men out the window.
No, I agree with that. That's the thing that I like the most about this series is unlike a lot of mail order bride books where the bride is, she has to have a man to survive. These are very strong women who realize we can do it on our own, but it would be easier to do it with some help.
Yes. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that nice equality, that's modern touch of equality in the stories helps a lot. You know, possibly back in the day it wouldn't have been this way, you know, but at the same time, we like to at least bring our modern vices into our history.
That's right. That's right.
You know? And so when our readers read this book, what should they expect when they read these books?
Oh my goodness. Expect the unexpected. How's that? I mean, really, I can only tell you about mine, and I know the broad general ideas of all the other authors because they all have to answer to me. And there's 10 of us all together. So, you know, there's a lot of stories up in the air. We're all doing at least 2 books in this series. So there'll be at least 20 books, at least, maybe more. We're still talking about that and we'll see how it goes. But I mean, the truth of the matter is you're going to see heartache, obviously, because every story centers around loss and recovery because they all lost someone. And the truth is it's such a huge disaster that the whole town is affected. So even if you didn't lose someone, you're still affected because the town itself changed overnight practically. You know, and so I mean, but I mean, I know there's going to be good guys, there's going to be bad guys, there's going to be good guys that you think are bad guys and bad guys that you think are good guys, and there's going to be romance, and there's going to be humor and some quirky characters that, you know, we don't want to give too much away, but there are a couple sisters that you should probably keep your eye on throughout the series. And when they are introduced, you'll know them right away. You know, and there's going to be a few animals, if I remember, that might be worth keeping your eye on as well. Some pets. So it's kind of going to have a little bit of something for everyone. Yes,
it's going to be it's a wonderful series, and we have a wonderful group, a nice crop of authors that is helping and going together to create this series. So that's why I'm really excited talking to our coordinator, our masterpiece, our leader of Silverpines, which is George McVeigh. And so we're at the end of our show. I mean, not our show here, but in our interview here today. But I do want to give people an opportunity to follow you online, George. So go ahead and tell people where they can.
I'm not. You can't find me. The truth is, I am certainly on Facebook. I have a readers group called George's Gorgeous Readers. That's probably the best place to connect with me at. You can connect with me personally on Facebook too at George H. McVeigh. And of course, Silverpines Readers Group is a great place. You You know, if you're into the books and want to talk about them or talk to any of the authors, that's a great starting place. And from there, you can find most of our other social media links. And of course, if you want to get my books, they're all on Amazon.
Yeah. All 3,000 of them on Amazon.
There's only 34 so far, but you know.
And more to come. I
That's
know
right. About that many more to come this year.
Yep, so. A writing machine. Well, George, thank you for letting us just get a little glimpse of Silverpines, and it's coming out. Guess when it's coming out, gang? Not a month from now, not 3 weeks from now. It is coming out next week, March 13th. So I want you to stay tuned for the first book of the Silverpines series called Mail Order Marshall, which is a Bride of Beckham crossover. So if you follow the Brides of Beckham, that book is going to lead you down the path to Silverpines.
Yep.
George, thank you for being with me on this interview. Thanks for talking to me. And I can't wait to have the book out and get our readers going. So thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for letting me. Talk to you all later.
Bye.